No. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much for coming on. This is really very exciting. I followed you for a long time on YouTube, so it's cool to kind of get to meet you and talk to you. I've been following you
Okay.
literally for years. I mean, it's funny because I have a note on my phone. Like I just kind of whenever I think of different ideas for projects, I just jot them down, to kind of whenever I get to it. And literally at the bottom of that note, I have like a list of the materials that you use in your videos. Like one of the
All right.
videos, you talked about what you use. I wrote it all down. I was like, all right, I want to like get into the foam sculpting because it's super cool. I've always loved the kind of like life size sculptures, the really large stuff.
Mm.
Kind of theme parks and all of that. That jazz. And so kind of the fiberglass statues that you make are just really up my alley. And so really, really got me excited to talk to you and hear a little bit about what you
Yeah.
do, your process, how you got into it. So let's start from the beginning. Like, how'd you get into sculpting, into just the arts in general?
Well, at school, I had a fantastic art teacher named Mrs. Westerman, and she encouraged me to get into art. And instead of sort of skipping off school, and you never bunked back in. So she said, like, whenever you didn't like a class, then come to me, and then I'll sit you in a corner, and I'll give you a lump of clay, and then you can make things. So if it wasn't for her, and then I wouldn't be on this path now. So I don't know what I would have done. And then she encouraged me to go to Thurrock Technical College, which was a foundation course. And you go around and you spend time in each of the classes or disciplines like fine art and drawing and photography. And then I went for another 3 or is it 3 years at Maidstone College of Art. And that was a BA, is an honours degree. So, but that was more about being an artist and not being a commercial artist, which is a massive difference.
Yeah. So what age was that the teacher? This is like in primary school? That was later?
Yeah, when I was about 14, 15.
Oh, nice.
I did have a careers talk. And he said, well, what does your dad do? And I said, well, he's a window cleaner. And he said, right, that's fine. As to call you the next person. And then I went to my art class and she said, Aden, you're very quiet. What's happened? And I said, I'm going to be a window cleaner my whole life. And she goes, no, you can go on to college. And then she advised me to go on to college. And that's where my pivotal moment kicked in. It was fantastic.
Well, it's amazing, like how much of an impact just like one person. You really, that's all it takes. That one person,
yeah,
kind of
for sure.
says the right thing to you at the right time, and it could change the course of your life. It's really
Well,
really
I'm not
amazing.
sure. I'm not sure how far the teachers can do it now. What with the curriculum?
Right.
But she took me under her wing, and
that's
she
really
said,
special.
Don't skip off school. Stick to my class, and you can always go back to the new one.
Yeah,
fantastic.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So have you always been creative and always into the arts, or is that kind of came later, like when you were in your teens?
Well, I think it was more for because I'm not particularly as academic, and my literacy and everything else sort of was downhill there. So I sort of played on my strengths, I think, and I got into more of the art scene. And to more of the conversational piece is where you go into college.
Yeah. So you then went to school specifically for art, for design, for you went to like an art college.
Like the foundation course was good because by the time you've done all your disciplines in all the different areas, you spent the last year in sculpture, and then they said, like, do you want to go on to BA college, and that's a Bachelor of Arts. To only do one discipline, and that was fine art in sculpture. And I chose the college which had the highest ceiling. A lot of people have different criteria, but I wanted the one with the highest ceiling so I could make big things. And that's what I knew I wanted to do at the time.
So you've always been into the idea of doing these kind of larger-than-life sculptures. That's kind of what always appealed to you.
Yeah, I made smallest model things at home, is on my desk in my bedroom. And you can spend weeks and weeks and weeks on things, but it wasn't much fun. But as soon as I went to college and I started to get off to the tabletop and making bigger things in clay and polystyrene, I thought, this is what I want to do.
So I'm just a technical question, because I've noticed with the foam sculptures, it's more like subtractive sculpting, where you're kind of cutting away, versus clay is obviously additive. Do you find them to be very different in terms of the skills required and the way you approach it, or do you find it's really the same basic principles, just just depending on the medium, it's a different way of approaching it?
we'll often make a small maquette model, which is about this kind of size, and we get the client to agree that size because I know I've done it once in my head and I've done it once in 3D, and then once I go to bigger size in polystyrene, as you said, you're always taking it away, but in clay you're adding. But I find I prefer to take it away because I can whittle it away slowly and then get to the piece I want. Where clay, I find is it's too forgiving. I find it allows you to carry on forever and ever and ever because you can take it and add it and take it and add it. Where the carving side of it, you know what you're after, and then you achieve it and you can't go any further.
Right. I went to heard some sort of quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something to the extent of like a good artist knows when to start, a great artist knows when to stop. It's like one of the hard things is it's hard, like, because you're always like tweaking, like I can do this and I can do this and I can, and you're always kind of playing around with it. But that's interesting that like when you're doing subtractive, it's really like if you take off too much, there's no putting it back,
Well, if you use like polystyrene, you can actually take off a great big slice and replace a part of the block. So, but if you're doing it in wood, it's a little more or stone. It's more restrictive.
Have you ever worked with like wood and stone, or do you mostly stick with? Yeah.
Well, mostly for speed, it's polystyrene because it's nice. Well, it's it's nice and fast, and you can carve it and you can flip things over on your own. You don't need 5 people to do it, and you get fast, very quick results. I prefer it.
Yeah. So what kind of things do you tend to prefer to? I see you have all kinds of clients. You've done, realistic things. You've done, things for us. I was looking at I personally love Pokemon. A lot of my projects are Pokemon related.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's why I did stuff for Pokemon. I did stuff for Harry Potter. What's kind of your preference? Do you have a specific genre you gravitate towards, or you're really open to all of them?
No, I quite like it because people would call me out of the blue, and they'll send me I don't know, like this morning, like someone wants a 7-foot duck.
Yeah.
And they want it for an art trail, and they want 10 of them. And I thought, oh, that's nice. I'll make a big rubber duck. And then other times they want something like the Statue of Liberty, and I look up the Statue of Liberty, and you go into depth, and it's quite nice. But there's no, I think I like the the variable side of it all.
You like the kind of each project is different.
Yeah, and it's challenging because I know what an elephant looks like in my head.
Right.
But there's people out there who really know what anoraks on things. So I know I've got to get it right, or else they will pull me up on it.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
So it is a real learning curve.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with something that's like popular, or something that somebody really loves. If there's like even a slight detail off, they're gonna instantly be like, wait a second, that's not how the nose looks, and then kind of takes them out of the illusion, kind of suspension of disbelief, or.
It's as you said, if you're a Pokemon person, and then you'll now know is every like nuance of it.
Right, exactly.
When like me coming in straight off, I don't know anything about Pokemon at all.
Right.
But so I've really got to do my research and try and get it right if I can.
Yeah, definitely. And the reference is everything. I mean, that's like that's one of the things that my teacher had taught me from the beginning, is that you always need reference, and you can never have enough reference. Just like you got to get a nice big stack of reference, and make sure the details of everything. That's really what separates something from looking like one thing versus not.
Yeah, for sure.
You kind of walk me through your career. So I noticed, I was looking on your website, and so you said that you started off in freelance. You're doing. I did some stuff for Madame Tussauds. So that was before you started your own studio, yeah?
Yeah. I worked for about. As soon as I left the college, they said, do you want to go on to an MA? And that's a Master of Arts. And I thought, no, I actually want to get out in the real world and sort of and put my newfound skills to practice.
Right.
And I wasn't particularly in the art field anyway. Because most of the time you go to art galleries and you eat cheese and wine and you talk a load of art stuff.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really my thing. I knew I actually wanted to make things.
Right. Less of like the theory and more of the hands-on. Get your hands dirty.
Yeah, and my college was more of a conceptual thing. Like they didn't actually care if you actually made anything. They just wanted to do to theorize about it and talk about it.
Yeah, I find it very interesting. You have these people like these like art history majors and stuff, and these people who love art and they love to be artists but never really make anything. And it's kind of like that's what an artist is. An artist is somebody who's creating things and bringing new things out there. If you're not doing that, then very nice you're studying art, and very nice all the history of every artist that ever existed, but like what do you have to show for yourself at the end of the day if you're not out there like actually making things? That's the whole appeal of it, and that's all where the fun is,
Well, I think there's a big difference between an artist and, say, a painter or a sculptor. One is hands-on and one knows about art, but never actually practices it.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. It's a good distinction. Yeah.
But getting back to your answer, like I said, I wanted to finish like Mason College of Art. So I went out freelance, and I went around all the model making companies, the theatre production companies, like with my portfolio in hand, knocked on all the doors at the time because there was no internet and all the rest of it. And I walked miles around London just visiting people. And naively they said, "Oh yeah, we like your portfolio and we'll give you a call Monday." And there's me on Monday morning with my hands across the phone, and nothing comes. And I think, oh, that was really naive of me. So, but you learn to take a knock, and then you get up again and you walk around some more studios and keep going.
Yeah, and even it's really that still applies today. Like you're saying, you're not walking, but you kind of. A lot of people either send your portfolios out, you touch base in different places, maybe you get an interview, and then nothing comes of it. It's very disappointing. And so, how'd you kind of deal with that? Like, it's just kind of grit, and you kind of just keep pushing on. This is what you love to do, and you're gonna make it happen regardless.
Yeah, I think you've got to. Well, it's not getting thick skin, but it's getting not to take it too personal.
Yeah,
and you think, and then you almost is it work out percentages. You think, is it out of 25 people, one might give me a call back, and then base it on that, and then you don't get. Is it too upset about it, or too disheartened?
Right. So what was the first hit that you got, your first gig that you got?
Like my first thing, I went round to a place called Blackfriars Studios, and I went in my portfolio, and they said, "Yeah, so start now." And I said, "Oh, okay." Well, I wasn't ready for that, but I think they just needed some more hands-on, and I was willing to work for them for a week or two for nothing, like just to prove myself.
Yeah.
And in the end, they said, "Yeah, you can stay on for another 6 weeks." And then I made and then through there, I made more contact through other companies, like in the prop making field, and within the theatre.
So that's what you started. You started in theatre and in props. That was kind of your first gig.
It was, like in the theatre, but it's quite interesting. In the theatre, you have to work things from 40 foot away, because that's where the closest performance is. Whereas you go to television or film or model making, it's up to an inch away.
Right.
So
what are the differences? And so I'm sure the details, obviously, I'm sure is different. Like I know, let's say for me, I do a lot of 3D printing. So with 3D printing, a digital object, you could have very fine details and all kinds of intricacies and keep it very light, and it'll show up on a render because it's all digital. Whereas once you send it to 3D printer, you really kind of have to push those details further to have them really show when it comes out. So I imagine it's something similar when it comes to with the theater. But can you kind of talk about that kind of differences between prop making for theater versus the smaller scale, up close work?
Yeah, like the difference in the theatre, as I said, the closest is 40 foot, so you make everything much bigger and deeper, and you don't concentrate on the detail because it's all done with the lighting. And also I find with the theatre, like you're working with cheap materials a lot of the time because they haven't got the budget. Whereas if you work with the television or the model making industry, they do have the budget and everything is filmed really, really close. So what you've got to do is concentrate on the details like more than anything else, and that takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So when you're working for the theater, you're mostly props, or you're also working on sets?
I got in there as a seamstress, like through the back door, and I couldn't sew, but I got on the sewing machine and I was sewing all these things. And the woman said, "You can't sew, can you?" And I said, "Well, not really." But she says, "Well, once you're in here, and then you can move internally into the props department." So I managed to go from the sewing department to the props department, and I was working on set and doing all the columns and
Oh, very cool.
and all the dresses. Yeah, fantastic.
What kind of materials were they using? Was it also like polystyrene and the same kind of materials you use now, or what were they using?
In polystyrene, like, is it back then? Like it was called, is it Javelite? Is it when it first came out? Like the raw material, it wasn't like EPS, which is expanded polystyrene. Like we used a lot of cardboard and cloth and size, and we stiffened the cloth. Like when we made rock faces, is over some kind of wooden fretwork. So it was real materials, and it had to be is it fire retardant as well? But because we used is it real materials, it was a lot heavier and robust. Where the polystyrene is a lot lighter, but they don't use it in the theatre a lot.
Right. So after you went from the theatre, where'd you go from there? What was kind of the next steps in your career?
Like from the theatre, I worked for theme parks. I worked for 7 years like as a freelance sculptor. And I've done my rounds everywhere. And in one particular place, I went in as a mould maker. Another place, I went in as a polystyrene sculptor. And then a prop maker in another place. So each time I got called from different areas, I knew what I was going to be doing. And I specialised in them particular things, in them particular like model making companies.
And that's great because you kind of learn different skills from each place.
Yeah, it was good. And although I was making the same things in each of the places, they all had their own ways of doing it. Like, is it horses for courses? And they said, well, this is like it's the same thing, but it's going to be used for a day. So we won't bother about making it strong and durable. It just has to look good for that day, and then they bin it. So I learned to do the same things, but in different materials and in different methods.
That's really cool. That's awesome. And so you say you kind of said that you went to theme parks. That just kind of caught my attention. I personally love theme park design. That's kind of like the dream. I've met a few like people who worked in Disney Imagineering, and to me, theme park design is that's the coolest expression of art, because there's that level of immersion you get when you're dealing with theme parks, right? So if you have a sculpture that's small, like a maquette size, let's say, you have it on your shelf. It looks great. It's really fun to look at. Whatever it is, if it's a character, whatever it is that you're into, and you have this character on your shelf, it's great. But when you're in a theme park or in any kind of like immersive experience, and you have all the props and sets around you that you kind of get to be in, there's a certain level of magic to that just, I think, is like really unique to theme parks, and it's always scratched a certain itch that I love, and so I really want to hear more about that. Which theme parks did you work for?
I worked for all of them in England, like Chessington, is it World of Adventures, and Thorpe Park, and a few up north as well. But I worked for most of them. Is it when I was freelance? So I went in and they said, hey, we want a giant whale for a midday parade. And I said, okay, that's going to take about 4 weeks. And they give me a studio and all the polystyrene and a few helpers if I needed them. And we went in. But is how I liked or why I liked is it to get into the theme parks in the first place is I've got 4 boys. And every time I went around the theme parks, I was always tapping the sculptures and the pieces and trying to see where the seams were. And they said, my wife kept saying, it's a busman's holiday for you, isn't it? And I was just looking to see how they've made it and how they constructed it. But it's fantastic. And I've always liked just bigger than life things. And I don't know why. Because they were just bigger. You like a giant ear and a giant telephone, and it's more like pop art almost.
Yeah. Like I love, like, also for me also, like when I went to, let's say, Disney, and like you're on for me, I love the dark rides, which are like, those are kind of like slow moving rides that have all the animatronics and all the cool sets you kind of go through. And I like look around and try to see like how do they do that, and like and trying to like, pick up all the little tricks that they do, because it's so fascinating to me, all the thought that goes into it. Like for just your average consumer who's going, to take their kids to the theme park, they really like, okay, whatever. You don't really think about it, it's cute, whatever. But when you really like stop and look and kind of understand how everything is done, it's incredible, the level of detail that goes and the level of thought that goes into every little aspect of it. It's fascinating to me. It's so cool.
Well, I made a big dragon for the river ride at Chessington, and initially like we made a model, and then we got into the psychology of it. Like when they're going through this log flume ride, they can't be holding on to the teeth because people stand up in a rise and want to hold on to things.
Right.
So we coated the teeth in a kind of sharp sand so they immediately let go. And we had to have a minimum entrance of the whole archway they went through because of claustrophobia.
Yeah.
And there was so much that we had to understand before we actually built the piece itself. So it was
they have a whole
very
team?
interesting.
They have a whole team designated just to kind of tell you these things, or you have to figure it out on your own? They kind of,
No, they like in Chesterton, like, they normally have a big workshop, or they used to back then, and they had a leader, as it were, a team leader. And then if you didn't want to do the jobs or they couldn't, handle the jobs inside, is it where they were too big, then they would call in like freelance people like myself to come in and talk about the project, and then go through all the nuances of it and all the do's and don'ts, and then I'll go away and build it.
Oh, very cool. That's really that's
fantastic.
Awesome. That's really cool. So I assume that's probably you learned a lot of your a lot of the kind of larger than life. Was that your first like kind of really large scale projects? Because I assume the theater there also were large scale projects, but I feel theme parks kind of even on a larger scale. It's really kind of things that you're walking into, and it's not just props or even sets. It's like even larger.
Yeah. Well, when you work in the theatre, there's normally like 6 or 7 of you all working on a giant scaffolding or whatever you're doing. But when you take on a personal project for like the Dragon ride that we made for Chesterton, was my project, and you almost learn through errors as well, because you have to think it through, like is it in your head, and then plan it out, and then try and go through it several times, and you iron out all the little kinks before you actually get to cut the material.
Yeah. What kind of materials are they using in these theme parks? Is it, are they doing also like fiberglass? Is that most of the things, or? So I imagine it has to be, lightweight but durable also. And there's I one time met somebody who was in the theme park industry, and he was telling me, I was asking kind of the differences between working in theme parks versus movies. And so the example he gave me was, let's say the Star Wars section in Disney in Florida, and I think they have it in California as well. And he was saying a few of the things that he said that were just very interesting. I never had even thought about. Was what he said. First of all, the budget you're dealing with is very different. Right? Let's say the Star Wars movie you're dealing with, let's say whatever, $200 million, versus when you're dealing with a Star Wars theme park, you're looking at like $2 billion. Yes, and there's also all the safety aspects, right? And you have kids who are coming and touching everything, and and jumping and climbing on things, and if anything falls and hits a kid on the head, that's a lawsuit, right? So there are definitely much more factors to take into account when you're dealing with theme parks. But yeah, I'm curious, like what kind of materials are they using when they're building these?
Yeah, well, they do use a lot of glass fiber on the individual things, but if they're doing a lot of theming where they're doing rocks and massive sets, and then they would use a chicken wire, and they use a concrete spray foam, and that's like a flexible concrete, so it could take the heat during the day and the cold during the night, and it's nice and light, but it's durable as well, and they can cover acres of space. Where if they're individual, like a giant horse or a massive face coming out, then they would stick them into the rock face and blend them in. But they'll be lightweight, and they'll be glass fiber, and they maybe still be textured and painted to look like the rock, but then sort of features like would be individually made outside, and then fixed to it.
Very cool. So let's say, like, as the sculptor, so you'd be sculpting like the chicken wire, I guess, and then they have like the technical people come in and just spray the concrete on top of it.
Well, they sometimes they have their own people who build up all the formers, and they put their own chicken wire on. But if they're after a particular thing to fit my particular thing, then I will go in and I'll make sure it all fits perfectly, and I'll mark it out, and I'll tell them where to stop and how thick to do it in that particular space. But yeah, it's all a learning curve, and but it all can be made good in the end by cutting and grinding as well. Right. So you can make mistakes and render it as well.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear. So you're doing all these different freelance gigs, and then at what point did you switch from doing freelance to opening your own studio?
But it's a weird thing. I found being freelance and shooting around to all the different studios, I found you were at your worst, but when you should have been at your best. Because say you're working on a giant ear for Sony, and on the last 2 or 3 days, you're thinking, oh, I'm finishing now on Friday. I need to get next Monday's job. So what should have been the cherry on the top is actually ruined for you because you're trying to plan that next Monday's project or next job. And I found that really quite difficult as a freelance because I didn't think that I was giving my best.
Interesting.
And also I found I was getting 3 hours into London, commuting, and 3 hours out of London. And I thought, well, I could have either been working or been at home during that period. So I said to my wife, if I open up a small studio, because I think I know enough now to start my own studio, I can either spend more time at home or another 6 hours in the studio producing. But the main thing was I could actually take on 2 or 3 jobs at the same time instead of one job, because often I find I can make something and put plaster on it, have to leave it 2 or 3 days before I come back to it. But if I've got 2 or 3 jobs in my studio, I could do one thing and leave that to set and then come back and then work on that one, then return back to the first one again. And it's much better as use of your time, basically.
Yeah. So how was it for you, like making that leap? Because you know it's a big risk. It's very scary, I'm sure, to go and start your own studio.
It's a weird thing because we decided to start a family. We got married and we started in 1985. We got married and then we started a studio in 1988.
Oh,
and
wow.
I thought if I start a studio, let's at least save up enough money to carry us through the year without having earning anything. So we saved up enough to give me a whole year's chance of a bit of gain and a bit of loss and a bit of gain and a chance to build a clientele.
Yeah.
But I found as soon as I went to my studio, it had nothing in there like my studio at all apart from a phone on the floor. And I was sitting beside the phone and people calling me and they were saying, Aden, can you come in and carve this? Can it? And I said, but can you send it down to me? And they said, we don't really want to do that. But they knew me well enough that they trusted me. So I got away with that. But it was a real risk. I had to sort of plan a whole year without earning.
Yeah.
But work did come in slowly and surely, and I managed to keep my head above water. So that was good.
Yeah. So what kind of advice would you give to people looking, maybe either in the freelance space or starting their own studios or kind of on the same path that you took? What kind of advice did you give looking back with the knowledge you have now?
Yeah. Well, I still think it's best to start off small. You can get your own toolbox, like if you're freelance, and every week buy a new tool or introduce a new tool, and then build up knowledge and go around to place and just build up it's your basic knowledge. But when you start up your own studio, I know so many people who do one big project or take on one big project, say from Disney, and they put all their eggs in one basket and Disney say, well, we're not going to pay you now, or it was a delay in your work, or there's a fault. So, and all of a sudden they lose their house. And they've invested all this time in a big workshop, machinery, and getting set up really professionally.
Yeah.
But they've got one job and then they fold. And I think start up slow and build up slowly and guarantee every job and just keep your head above water.
Yeah.
I think the main thing is it even now, like, is it when you start in business, like you can have all the jobs like lined up. You can have 100 jobs, but if you can't keep cash flow going, then then you're a pauper.
Right.
If you don't have the cash flow, then you're stuck.
Right. So can you walk me through kind of that first year? Like, how'd that go? You were getting jobs were trickling in. It was mostly from people that you've already had connections with from your time doing freelance.
Yeah. Well, I found that I was in direct competition to everyone I used to work for. But I was so friendly with them and familiar, and they trusted me that they did send the work out. But they said, can I send the work back to the studio before they have the people coming around to have a look at it? So it looks as if they did it. And
so
I
you're
said,
like touching up your other people's work.
Well, no, I was doing the job and sending it to their studio before their clients got round to have a look at it, so they could all be there playing with it.
Yeah.
As if they've made it, which it was fine with me as long as I got what I needed from it, which was cash, to run my studio, and that was fine. But I wasn't in any kind of a prima donna where I wanted to claim all the glory. I just needed, because I started a small family. we had 4 boys in the end.
Wow.
But I just had to keep my head above water and concentrate, just keeping like for the next job or the next job, and that just kept me enthused and going.
Yeah, that's awesome that your wife was so supportive of you to, you know, kind of. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really that's everything.
Well, I think it's what you said. It's everything, because if you don't have that support, then I think you're knackered, basically. You know, like, I go to her and I said, I'm going to spend this on this or that, and she goes, like, you know what you're doing, Aden, and she trusted me.
It's awesome.
The good thing is my wife does the books and she's the accountant, so she knows what goes on and she's involved with the business, which I think is quite critical, because if you've got 2 separate things going on, like her life and my life, I think they don't mix. But when she knows how I'm dealing with the clients,
right,
and she knows how important it is, and she understands why I'm letting things go and why I'm chasing things. So
right,
but without her support, I wouldn't be here. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious I wanted to ask you. So I know you said your sons work with you in the studio. So so how do you kind of balance the being, you know, the art director, if you will, and the father? Like how does that work? And
that's it always like they used to come in school holidays and they'd work with me, and I'd get them sort of rubbing down something or foiling something and a bit of cleaning up and making tea, and we have a chat. And but I think we've grown up slowly with it.
Yeah,
and they know that I'm the boss. And then we sit down and we brainstorm ideas. I said, well, what's a good idea, like, to send out to somebody, like when work was running short? And they said, oh, there's a marble convention coming up. Like, do a giant pack of marbles. And I said, just come up with ideas, because I think the young people come up with fantastic ideas without any restrictions. It's like, I'm going to the moon tomorrow. You think, okay, that's good, but how do I get there?
Right,
but they plant so many fantastic ideas in your head, and I think I mean, there's no such thing as a stupid idea,
right?
And often we look at that silly idea, and it becomes real, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. So have they been kind of their whole life? They've always been working with you and interested in sculpture and.
Well, they've all got their own careers. Like, they're all like actors. Well, one's a school teacher now. But they're all actors in their own right, and they go around and they do plays and performances around the country. But every now and again, I have 2 with me, and then they have 3 with me, and sometimes they're 4 with me. And it's just good.
That's awesome.
I don't know many people or many dads that get to work with their boys or the girls. You know, it's fantastic.
Very special. That's really nice.
I love it.
Yeah, I have a little boy. He's only 3 now. He's a little too young to help out, but it's just so cute. Like, he loves to see what I'm working on. And it's funny, like, for a while, when he was like 2, like last year, anytime he'd see anything, like any piece of artwork, whatever it was, he'd be like, "Daddy made that?" And like, it'd be anything, you know, like, it'd be wherever we were. It's very sweet. It's just, it kind of tugs on your heartstrings, you know. And
like my boys used to go on a school trip to Chessington, and my boys were saying to the teacher or the kids, my dad, and they're all calling him a liar. And then the teacher called me in and said, "Look, Mr. Hynes, but what do you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a sculptor. I make things to think." Fine, I understand now. Why is it? They just thought that he was exaggerating. My dad's an astronaut or something.
Yeah, that's really awesome. That's really cool. So you've made a lot of projects throughout your time in your studio, at least from what you post on YouTube. What sort of things, like, do you enjoy making the most? Like, one project that I personally really liked that I saw on your channel. It was this like tree that was for, I think it was for a kid's room, where it was you went like into the corner, it had a little crawl space. It was very cool. Do you have a particular type of project that you enjoy to do more than others? I know I asked before about genre, but just in general, is there kind of something that you gravitate towards more, or you kind of just take whatever comes your way?
If I like out of all the materials, if there's woodwork and welding and sewing, and if I could just be left of like I go home sometimes and I have tea, and then I'll come back and I'll work till 3 or 4 in the morning just carving, and people said, well, that's hard work, but I call it play, because I love it, and I think it's therapeutic, and I can just stick on a radio or some music or a storybook or something, and I can be carving and listening, but I've got that concentration, and I'm in the zone, really.
Right.
And then 5 or 6 hours can go in minutes to me. But I get so much done, you know?
Yeah. Someone time said to me, I never forget this. I was in high school. I was probably 14, 15. And so I said this line, I said, your vocation should be your vacation. And it really stuck with me. And it's a great line. It's true. Like, there are a lot of these sayings about, if you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life. And it's true. It's amazing when you kind of can make a career out of doing what you're passionate about and what you love. I mean, it's, and then it shows in your work also, you produce things that are really, there's a lot of love in it, and it shows through, and the quality is just so much higher because, you're doing it out of love, not because like, another day I have to go to the office and do whatever and, kind of drag your feet. So it's a lot of fun to kind of be able to like work in what you love to do, for sure. That's really special.
Well, I find it is like being an artist and being in business doesn't mix in a way, because if they say, Aden, you've got 2 weeks to carve this Venus de Milo, what it happens to be. And if they say, actually, you've got 3 weeks, I spend 3 weeks on it. And as a business, that's not very good.
Right.
But I just want to give them that little bit more, that little extra little piece that they haven't asked for. And they love that because you're concentrated. And the best thing about being a small business as regards to a massive corporate company is I can give them things that corporate companies can't give them, and that's their time and their personal interest. I can, instead of them giving the Chinese whisper down the line of the story and what's got to happen, they talk to me direct, and I give them exactly what they're after because I'm the one who's carving it. So it's really important. There's a small business where you can actually give them more.
So are you you're hands-on with every single project that comes into your studio? Because I've seen from your videos, and you have a whole team, you have people who are helping you out, but you're really kind of getting your hands on every single project that comes into your studio?
Yeah, I am. But sometimes I hire out a bigger studio, like a farm building, and I walk back and I say, can I have, 20,000 square foot, please, because I'm building a set. And then I call in extra freelance people. And I find when I take on big projects, it's not very enjoyable for me because all I do is put out fires all day. I'm talking to clients, I'm checking measurements, I'm sorting out problems, I'm instructing people. And then when I walk away from the studio at night, I think I haven't done any of that, or I should have been doing that. So what I like to do is come back to the studio, my own studio, and do my own thing, and I do the carving, and that's where I get the most pleasure. And it's not about the money now. It's about how well I can do it, and enjoying it.
So how many projects do you typically have at any given time? Are you doing kind of like, you keep it small, so you keep like 2 to 3 maximum, or do you kind of have more at any given time?
Well, I say to a lot of people, like this project, I don't know, a large tree or something is going to take 5 weeks. And then another project could take 10 weeks. And so what I do is try and space it out. And other people, they say, well, there's no real time on this, Aden. So I will also take on their project as well. And I can fit theirs in between his other projects. But I try not to take on, is it too much then, like bite off, is it too much then I can actually chew? Right. Because I find it suffers, and I come home a bit stressed and I'm worried about it. And really and truly, in my time of life, I don't want to be worried about things. I want to enjoy it.
Yeah. I've noticed, one of your pieces that's kind of present, most of your videos is in the background. You had that Pink Floyd piece. Was that for the actual band that you created that? It was a set piece for one of their concerts?
Yeah, it was for their a record sleeve and their CDs. And 2 sculptors got called into London, and they said, like, grab an envelope. Storm is it Ferguson, like, who was the designer, and the art director said, like, choose an envelope each. And I chose A and B, and one made the stone heads and one made the metal heads. So I made a maquette first of all, and they said, can we have that about 30 foot? And I thought, and I didn't know, well, I knew of Pink Floyd at the time because, 77, they sort of kicked off. And I thought, and I wasn't really into heavy metal, but we met the group and we got an idea, and I listened to the music, and we carved these pieces and went on set and filmed it outside Ely in London, outside London. And it's a famous piece now. And I think
the one on the album cover, that's your sculpture?
Like the metal ones are somebody else's. I forget his name now. And I made the stone ones for the cassette sleeve.
Oh, wow.
But
That's really cool. So on the actual cassette sleeve, that's just a photo of your sculptures.
of my sculptures, yeah.
Oh, wow. I, didn't know. I thought that like that was, the famous album cover. And then I thought you just did like for a concert or something, you made it, to kind of go in the background. But that was actually the one that was used on the artwork.
It's actually on there.
Oh, that's really cool.
I think the best thing about, like if you're a road sweep, you sweep up leaves and you come away and or whatever you're doing. But people still talk about my work. Is it 40 years down the line?
Yeah.
And I kind of get paid twice. I get paid money when I've done it and I met the people and the job was good. But I still get paid when I see it on concerts or TV or in film. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I know why I'm in this business because they're still talking about the work and it's great.
Yeah, that's so cool. Wow. So how did let's say these big clients, how do they find you? Is it just word of mouth or do you kind of go out? Like, what's the process there?
Well, years and years ago, you used to get things like journals and the white book and the industry manuals. And I sat down and we done photocopies, black and white photocopies of all the projects I had done to that date. Mm. And we sent off about 1,000. My wife went through them all and she said, oh, you've done 6 to this person, 6 to that person. And so we filtered them, put a stamp on them and just sent them out. And the people who still phone me up now and said, Aden, are you still going? I've still got one of your black and white photocopies from 35 years ago or something.
Wow.
I think, really? And they've shown it on, what we're talking to now. And they've shown me and they said, look, still your photographs.
That's so funny.
And I think they've kept hold of it all this time. And they said, I knew I was going to use you someday.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Wow. And then the more modern clients, the ones that kind of, you don't have the magazines from 35 years ago. Mm. Where are they finding out about you from? Is it you? Do you find them? Do they find you or do you find them?
Well, they find me now. Like, my son does all the videos. We've got about 400 videos up on YouTube now.
Yeah.
And I used to, because I wasn't very good at reading, writing everything, I used to go around a big VHS and video my work. Mm-hmm. And my son said, instead of like you can actually put all your videos and I'll edit them and put them up on YouTube. So now it's on YouTube and we have a comprehensive website as well. And people phone me up from China, Dubai, Oklahoma, and they say, we've seen your work and can you make this? And I say, I'm only a small company, I'm not trying to turn down work or anything,
right?
But you know how big I am and where I am. Right. And they said, yes, just put it in a container and send it to us, please. So they actively find me on, and I don't pay for that. It's all free. It's, the website and YouTube is free. So it's fantastic advertising.
I saw on your website, I was curious to hear more about it because I saw on your website, there was a project you had done for something in Dubai, but then it said that, the photos weren't available or something. It looked like it was like some sort of forest or something. What was that project?
Oh, we've done lots in Dubai. Oh, yeah, we've done a lot for the municipality of Dubai, and that was a museum. Uh-huh. Very, very hush-hush, and they didn't like to take photographs of everything. They said it could take some personal, but they made you sign a waiver because Dubaians are very careful in everything they do. And the same with the Harry Potter thing as well. Like we've done the nest for the nest and the child for the cursed child for the theatre production in London. And we've done a really lovely video for that. We spent a particularly long time on that one. Uh-huh. It's almost like a small feature. But they said, you can't use that. And we thought, oh, that would have been fantastic, like particularly at the time as well,
I think they're making a movie out of it now. I think it was on in the theater for a while, and I think now they're bringing it to cinema, I believe. I saw some trailers going around.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Cool.
The nice thing is that when I get to meet all the same famous people, the big names, and then you get invited to the red carpets, and then the openings, premieres, and then the big tickets to go to New York and see because they made the nest for in New York as well. Uh-huh. And they said, oh, so here's a couple of tickets for New York.
That's awesome. And so your wife and your kids, you guys get to all go and check it out.
Well, me and my wife, we flew over there, spent a week in New York and then cruise back, so we made the best of it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I saw what was that?
No, go on, carry on.
I was speaking of cruises. I saw also another of your projects was that water slide you did for, I think it was for a cruise ship, right? It was that was very cool.
Well, they called me in to make some little rock faces and some shells, and they said they've got this goddamn awful horrible pond with this dinosaur which had the scariest faces, and it must have been someone who did know what a face looked like. And we said, wow, that's going to scare the kids because only 5-year-olds sliding. And they said, well, can you make us something else? And we said, all right, well, what kind of thing do you want? And they said a kind of a little mermaid with shells, and we made seating areas, and we kept incorporating small bits. And they said, yeah, we love it. Just do it, please. Just get it done and make. And in the end, for quite a structured company, they actually let us have carte blanche. In the end, they said, just do what you think, as long as it fits the space. So it come together in pieces. They hoisted it up, and we went to France, and we fitted it up, and it was fantastic. Cool. Worked really nice in the end.
Yeah, my sister, growing up, had one of her best friends. Her father was also kind of a sculptor, and so I remember they had this they had a pool house in their backyard. It was kind of like an indoor pool, and he had made these really cool sculptures. I think he used like paper mache. I'm pretty sure, like chicken wire and paper mache. I'm pretty sure. It was very cool. He had like this. There's this huge, probably 20-foot elephant, like that was kind of walking out of the wall, and it had this trunk that was like it would shoot water into the pool, and it had a slide with a gorilla coming out. It was very cool. That's what it made me think of. It's just these projects. It's so much fun. It's so much fun to kind of get to create different things and and then see them in action and kind of see people enjoying it. It's also
really fantastic. I mean, I go down the shops and you see all these Iron Maiden things. We do a lot for Iron Maiden rock groups, and you see it all in their t-shirts. Yeah. And I got to him, I said, have you seen that show? He said, I'll go and see it. I love it. I love Eddie or whatever. I said, I made Eddie. And then they look at you in disbelief, and I give me a little card. They say, let's have a look at this video. And then they phone it back and they visit the studio, and they're really enthusiastic. It's just great to get a buzz off people,
Yeah, definitely. It's like a certain enjoyment you get. Like when you see other people enjoying your work, it's like it kind of gives you a certain pleasure that nothing else really does. And you kind of make something and get other people to see it and be like, wow, like. And it's not even about the like recognition. It's just like the joy that you see people get from your work. It's just, I don't know, it's so much fun.
Oh, well, I've been to concerts, and all of a sudden Eddie, their famous Eddie Head, comes out on stage, and these are like 50 and 60-year-old men as well as the kids, and they're shouting at Eddie, and they love him, and you're thinking, I really didn't realise the response he got. Like they're obviously big fans of Eddie.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But it's great.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, so obviously there's the, like we were saying, the enjoyment aspect of it. There's also the making money aspect of it. Do you find it difficult at all to kind of strike a balance between doing what you want to do and doing what you have to do? Or is it at this point in your career, you kind of just, whatever you're doing is the only thing, you only accept jobs that you want to do?
Well, we're going back to the cash flow business. I learned earlier on, about 10 years ago, that like big companies will let you down and they don't pay you for some reason or another. The job went well, and somehow, and it's normally the bigger companies. I won't say which ones because it'd be wrong. But all of a sudden I lost 10, 15 grand, which is basically the profit on something. So nowadays I don't let things leave the workshop until they've paid half. And then when it comes to taking it away from the studio, they pay in full. And a lot of big companies say, no, it's 60 days afterwards. And I said, well, no, I've had 6 weeks to make it, and you've had 6 weeks to pay it. So pay it. And the lorry's out there waiting, but I don't put it on until they've paid. So now I'm not having to chase money later on. So I think that's an important thing in business.
Do you think that you're uniquely positioned to do that because you have your own studio and because you have kind of the you're established in your career, right? And if you're a big name and you have the reputation behind you, you could do that. But sometimes you have these smaller artists who are starting out, right? They kind of got to take whatever gig they can get, and especially now, like I think it's unique with the physical sculptures, right? It's you basically say that I'm not going to ship it to you till you pay me, right? But when you deal with digital, it's you're constantly sending it back and forth, and it might be a little more difficult. Do you think that's like unique to your position, or do you think that could really be applied to any artist at any point in their career?
Yeah, I think it can be applied like to any artist, because you can, like in the very first conversations I have with them, you can say the work is always yours and it can't be used until they've paid for it. And you can make your terms and conditions like fairly clear.
Yeah.
I think, but when you first start out, and when I first started out, I would jump through hoops for people,
Yeah.
and I said, yeah, I could do that, and almost silly and naive. I would think, well, I shouldn't have promised that, and I shouldn't have promised that.
Right.
And so, well, what I do now is I can cherry pick my work, and I can make sure it's comfortable, and I give myself some leeway,
Yeah.
and also I can put some restrictions in, like I want a third and a third and a third,
Mhm.
like during stage payments, but that depends how big the project is. And they're
Right.
quite happy with that, as long as I can send them pictures or progress, or they can come to the studio and view it.
Right.
But now I'm more established. I've got more comfortable, and I've calmed down a little bit, and
Yeah.
I think about what I say to people in terms of promises.
Yeah. Yeah. That's smart. Yeah. I had another question. I'm drawing a blank that I was going to ask. Oh yeah. You had mentioned in your email that you started getting into ZBrush. I'm
Yeah.
curious to hear about that. Is that what got you to make the jump to digital media?
Well, this fantastic artist come from America, and he does all these 60-foot high-rise black out of spray painting. Fantastic. He's a mural artist, but now he's moving to France and he's getting into sculpture. But he's seen he said he's seen all my videos, and he said, "Can I fly over from California and spend 3 days with you?" I said, "Yeah, okay." And he's has a number of questions because he wants to. He said he's looked on YouTube, and he said, when it comes to the crunch, they don't answer what you're waiting 3 hours to see. He said, but if I spend 3 days with you, I can ask everything I want and learn 3 days, which is 20 years worth of work. He said, and he paid me, which was fantastic. And the guy was fantastic. He come down and he said, "Oh, and look at this, I'm getting into ZBrush." So now I'm getting into ZBrush myself, because I can design it and send it to my clients on ZBrush instead of making a working maquette.
So you're doing it for... Oh, sorry, sorry about that. Give me 1 second. I apologize. Someone's trying to call me. I'll edit this part out. Don't worry.
Okay.
Sorry about that. You were talking about ZBrush.
Yeah.
So you're using ZBrush primarily for your maquettes.
Well, I'm trying to.
Yeah.
It is a real learning curve. Like my son,
that's for sure.
Like Sean can pick it. He's good on the internet, and he can learn things at a drop of a hat.
Yeah.
Where I'm more of a practice guy, I need to do it several times to lock it into my brain.
Yeah, for sure. But ZBrush, there's a tremendous amount of resources online, in terms of like, on YouTube, just videos talking about how to do different things in ZBrush. I think it's probably the most powerful sculpting tool that's out there right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's one of the difficult things about ZBrush, when, like, especially in the learning phase, is there's like menus on menus on menus. So like you're trying to figure something out, and like you're trying to find something, but it's like you gotta like click on this button and then click on that button and click on that button to find it. Which is kind of a strength and a weakness. On the one hand, you could do anything, but it's also, especially when you're just learning it, it could really get tricky.
Yeah. The guy who come down to my studio, he said, "Look, you can do this. You could pull that out of there and make the nose and go inside the job and push the job out, and or render it." I said, fantastic. But for me to get there or to his level is going to take me a couple of years.
Right.
I said, for me, it's almost quicker for me to make it in clay as a maquette and send that to my client. Not for the moment anyway. But as time goes on and they have a little bit more of a play, I think ZBrush will be a fantastic play tool.
Yeah, it's again, like I said, it's super powerful. It's what I use every day. ZBrush is my go-to. It's all my sculpting is done in ZBrush. And I've been fortunate enough to kind of meet the team behind ZBrush. It's just amazing people. They're just like so happy to help, and they're just it's a great program with a great team behind it. So those two things together really just makes it such a pleasure to use. And it's really, like, I find it's really limitless what you could do. Like, there are things, obviously there are limits when you're dealing with physical, physical objects. Obviously you got certain laws of nature you gotta take into account.
Yeah.
And when you're in the digital realm, you really kind of have a little bit more freedom. And then you can kind of, like you were saying before, with the kids having these kind of wild ideas, and then kind of like, okay, now that we had this idea, let's figure out how we could actually, like, make it happen. I find the same thing with ZBrush. Like, you can kind of really push things to the limit and then be like, okay, so maybe I can't have this thing floating, but how could I make it look like it's floating without anything showing? You know, you kind of like it's a really, really great tool. I highly encourage anybody who's looking to learn. It's well worth the time and investment of time and effort.
Well, yeah, like I've spoken to clients and they send me a ZBrush file. And they say, we like this, and then someone will go on the ZBrush and say, pull it out. Well, how about we hang it down or it does that so it doesn't stick it in people's faces? And they said, oh, fantastic. And you can make very small adjustments very, very quickly.
Right.
And then they sign their project off and then we get on and make it. So it is a fantastic tool, I must admit.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. It's I can't say enough about ZBrush. So I was very excited when I heard you're starting to use it. I was very excited.
Well, Sean is using it, and I'm only learning. That's for sure.
Are you using it on the computer or on your iPad?
Yeah, no, that's on the computer. Like we got an Apple here, so
nice. They have it also it's also available on iPad. So you can take it on the go. It's great. They just released it this year.
Yeah. Well, that's what the California guy. He come down and he had it on an iPad and he was just sketching loads of things. And I thought, wow, I really am. You know, I always, especially as I'm getting older and kind of slower or whatever, I think, well, I can get into this. I can actually go around to clients and sculpt these things on ZBrush and then let them print it. Yeah, in real time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
for
that's
sure.
future, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, like the great thing, like we said before, like doing what you love, you know, like you could. If you're working just for the sake of working, you know, it's like you kind of are counting down to retirement. But if you're doing what you love, it's like, you know, you're gonna keep doing that till you can't do it no more. You know, that's So it's
well, I'm 65 now. In September I'm 66, and we're going to close up the business next year.
Really?
Yeah. And my wife said, "Oh, stop doing that because we got pensions and things." And they said there's no point in working because they take it all in tax or whatever. I said. I still need to get out because I'm not a golfer or a footballer. I said, I still need to get out the house every day. So wherever we go to, like we're going to move, I said, I still want a small studio. I can go in and get something to get up for every day and actually create my own art.
Yeah.
And then have exhibitions. And then that way I'm not jumping through hoops for commercial business. I'm making it for myself and I can just please myself and go sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to that.
For the love of it. Wow.
I'm doing it, yeah. And plus to get out of the house as well.
What are you going to do with all this, because you have all these, huge sculptures. Where are you going to put all that? It's kind of a little hard to store them in your basement.
Well, no, I'm looking to basements. We don't have basements in England. No, I'm looking to sell it all if I can, because when I sell a studio, it's got to be clear and empty. So I'm looking to sell everything I've got on my wall. So I've done a little video I've done a little wrap around of everything I'm going round and saying this is that much and this is made of fiberglass and that's 500 quid or whatever.
Yeah.
Just to clear my space, really.
Wow. Are you gonna continue to work on these kind of the polystyrene sculptures and the fiberglass, or you think you're gonna move away from that and focus more on small scale like clay or ZBrush and?
I don't know yet. I mean, I'm going to be limited to my workspace,
right?
But if I get a triple garage or something, wherever, or even go to a local farm and say, "Can I have a little bit of your space, please?" As an artist, they might like that. But I still intend to carve because I think my favourite is the carving. I like the taking away. I think as Michelangelo said, the job has always been in the piece, and I'm just chipping away the loose pieces, or whatever that phrase is. You know,
I think with David's who's always there. I just revealed him something to that extent.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm just a tool to chip away the loose pieces. Yeah, that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I always intend to do it because no matter what I do, like when I'm at home, is it TV's on or whatever we're doing, and I've still got the sketch pad on my lap and I'm drawing.
Yeah.
But now if I can have the ZBrush on my lap and sketch and sculpt, I'm doing both, aren't I?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh wow, it'll be a shame to not have your YouTube videos anymore.
Well, I've got loads of subscribers and patrons.
Yeah.
And they're always phoning me up and asking me questions. So how do I fix this? And what if I'd done that? And if I take a project on here, so I give them personal information.
That's awesome.
So and I do how to use certain tools and how to make a wire brush or a wire cutter.
Yeah.
But they're often is emailing me now and saying, Aden, I've taken on this project. What's the best material for this, or how do I get over this problem?
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I respond to them. So I think I will always keep up the like the YouTubes anyway.
Keep up like the community aspect of it, and
Yeah.
and move
And,
more into like a teaching mode.
Well, yeah. For the last 5 years, I've been going around to schools and universities, and they call them blue rinse art classes, where the art societies will invite a sculptor in, or a painter, or a carpet weaver, what it happens to be, and you talk about for half an hour of your job, have a cup of tea and a chat, and then for another half an hour, and then a few like bit of Q&A afterwards. And now I'm moving into the lecture market as well. So
Nice.
and it's fantastic because I still love talking about it,
Right.
and people are so enthusiastic about what we do. Like, they just think they've got things off shelves,
Yeah.
and then I show them how it's actually been produced, and they think, "Oh, I never knew that." And it's just nice to see that reveal.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Have you thought about getting into like 3D printing at all, or that doesn't really speak to you?
Yeah, I've got a 3D printer here that Sean bought, and it's fantastic because we can make something like relatively small like this,
Right.
print it on, have a look around it 3D in real terms instead of on the screen,
Right.
and think, okay, perhaps I will enlarge it a bit more, print it off a little bit, like 50 mil,
Yeah.
have a look around it again, sweeten areas up because you can actually see it in 3D.
Yeah.
And hold it in your hand, and then and that's fantastic. And then if we wanted to send it away to a CNC cutter, then they can cut it big because you've already got the file. There's no interpretation. They've made exactly what you want.
Right. Right. What kind of printer are you using?
Sorry?
What kind of printer are you using?
Well, I don't know. It's only a baby one. Sean got it off the internet. And is it like an Elegoo?
Oh, very nice. Sure.
Is it Elegoo?
Yeah, sure.
But it's good enough. It does leave it running all day. It does fine,
Yeah. You're doing it's the is it resin or is it FDM? Like, do you put the spools of plastic, or is it the liquid that you pour into the bottom?
Oh, it's the liquid, yeah. It spits it out.
Nice.
Yeah, but well, what we found out is my friend's got a newer model because he works for the car is the automotive industry, and he's got a finer one which does really clean lines. So there's actually less cleaning up in the prep out afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. So, when you get into like the 3D printing, like, it's amazing because the technology's been around for a long time. I think it's like 15 years or at least.
Yeah.
But only in the last few years has it really kind of picked up in like the hobby space. But it's really amazing because you can find printers for like $100, and then they go up to tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending. They really kind of all different levels, But yeah, like, I have a printer. It's not even that expensive, and and I got the one that's the FDM, so it got the spool of plastic. Just because I got the 3-year-old running around, and so I don't need all the chemicals. I figured it's easier this way. But no, it's great. It's great to kind of just like get quick projects off, and it's not so quick. That's the truth, but it's just it's a nice way to kind of get things done, like on the small scale.
But I think the best thing about it is you've got it on your page or your drawing or your ZBrush, and also the next morning you come in and it's printed in 3D, and it's actually come off the page now, and there it is, and you think, well, I've created that.
Yeah. I love
fantastic.
I love to make things that I kind of keep on my desk. Like, I have my headphone stand that I made, and I made a pen holder. Like, I love to make things that like, I kind of look at them and use them and like really kind of see my work come to life. That's like the kind of a lot of enjoyment out of that. Kind of get to really enjoy your work.
Yeah, like, is it when I was a model maker? You would spend 3 weeks making something this big on tabletop of St. Paul's.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. There were little angles and buttresses and the architecture. But when I left, is after 3 weeks, and it looked good, but I got no real enjoyment out of it. But when I carve, I don't know, a dinosaur in my studio, and I go to turn off the light at night, I think, I made that. And there's some kind of little bit of a boost it gives you, and you think something bigger is nicer for me. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, for sure. Bigger's always better, as they say, right?
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Yeah, you ever worked with like any like moving parts like animatronics or like have you ever done anything of that sort or not really?
What we do, like we've made like mobile phones that people can interact with, like giant mobile phones, so
Oh,
they can
cool.
stand with and play like a machine, and on the screen they're playing games.
Yeah,
And then I've called people in to do that part, the animatronics and the
yeah.
lighting and the flashing, and even when it hit a certain key, it vibrated like a plate the phone would.
Uh-huh.
And that went around to different nightclubs. We made about 10 of those, and they went around to different nightclubs. But it had to be really robust because by the time they've had a drink and
Right.
spilt things on it and slapping and getting drunk and that, they had to be
Yeah.
really tough.
Yeah, yeah. How
But
big were those? Those like huge or
yeah,
what kind
about 5 foot, like the pin machine,
of uh-huh.
like a pinball machine
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
size. So it
Oh,
could fit
very
in the
cool.
corner somewhere, but it was a mobile phone like Nokia or Motorola or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
But yeah,
So I was want to ask you a question. This is kind of because a lot of people can watch this and hear your story and see your work and say like, wow, this guy he really was successful, made a really great career for himself. Can you talk about like one of the biggest failures? Because I think it's easy to look as let's say as an artist starting out or wherever you are in your career, like, it's easy to look at the great artists out there and be like, wow, like I can never do what he did. But sometimes people don't necessarily see because people don't necessarily show kind of the things that didn't work out. Can you talk about some of the times that like things didn't work out the way that you envisioned it or it didn't necessarily pan out, and it wasn't always butterflies and rainbows.
yeah, well, I worked for another Dubai company. Like you fail for different reasons in a way. I like in a business sense, I worked for this Dubai company, and I come back, and the British company who've employed me to do it went bust, or so they say. So I lost like 50 grand. And I thought, oh, try and learn instead of is having a heart attack
Yeah.
and worrying about it, like learn from it and get over it.
Yeah.
Like just to write it off and think, okay, I've learned that lesson, a hard lesson to learn, but get
Yeah.
over it. And then I've done things in my studio, and you give somebody a prize for making a Cadillac or something like that for a stage show, and you give them a prize of, you think I really want to make this because I haven't got much work on. I've got four guys in the studio. Like, let's just keep busy. So I'll give them a really keen price as well. Say it's 5 grand or whatever. And then when I've done the job, it's cost me 7 or 8.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, I should have really controlled that a bit more or learned to just discipline myself. But having said that, like we did a lovely job and everyone got paid. And so what? I didn't make quite some money, but
Right.
I do try and source the jobs a little bit more careful. I
Yeah.
think that's going to take that much. And I think when I call freelance people in, I'll give them, I think something's going to take a week. I'll say, well, that's going to take a week and a half or 2 weeks for the freelancer
Yeah.
because I know how fast I work, but I'll give them a bit of leeway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of plan it into the budget as well.
Yeah. So looking back on your career, we spoke about failure, but how do you define success?
Well, I've done exactly what I wanted to do all of my life, and I've got paid for it. And also, I've managed to juggle a home life with my wife and the 4 kids. And every time I had a job, and because my workshop was just around the corner, she could say, "Oh, we've got parents-teacher evening," or they're running around the field, the parents are coming. I could lock up the shop and go running with the kid, and then come back, and I could be at home and grow up with the children and pay my wife to do the account. She was part of the business, but I've done exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it in my own way. And I could also employ people who I wanted around me. A lot of companies don't have this choice. Well, I have exactly who, if they come for an interview, I choose them because I like them and not for how clever they are.
Yeah.
So I've been, and I make sure that every day is fun at work.
Yeah.
I just enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, that definitely sounds like success to me.
Well, yeah, I've got no regrets.
Yeah.
And I think the worst thing in life is regrets. Like, I've taken on jobs where I shouldn't have taken on, but I think take them on and then you don't have a regret. You think, oh, if only I made that, if only it. So I take them on and you stretch yourself and you build your portfolio and you get bigger and better, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's a great place to wrap it up.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This is
Yeah.
really awesome. I appreciate
And
your time.
question, I think your questions were the most comprehensive and
I
best
appreciate it.
questions I've had so far.
Well, I'll tell you, I like I said, like I started from the beginning. I've been following you for a long time on YouTube. I've always loved. You can ask my wife. I'd be sitting there watching your videos like late at night. She's like, "Oh, why are you still awake?" And just I like it's,
oh right, okay.
It like your stuff is it's so amazing. It really and there's not many people I think out there who are doing what you're doing. Especially kind of in the small studio space, right? And a lot of the big whatever Warner Brothers and Disney and these big companies are doing it in house, but to have somebody who's kind of doing it on their own, and kind of putting it out there for people to see and to enjoy and to learn from. I think that's really amazing. I know it's sad to hear that you're closing up shop next year, but listen, I know that you're not going to stop creating, and I know you're
And I'll still be on YouTube, and people can contact me regardless if they have any questions or whatever they want to do.
So where can everybody find you? Can you see quickly your YouTube channel, your website?
Yeah, well, if you just type in Sculpture Studios, I should come up first.
All right, wonderful.
And my website is www.sculpturestudios, all one word, .co.uk.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for reaching out for me as well.
Yeah, of course. Hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, okay.
All righty. Take care.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome.